Welcome, everybody, to our True Self Talk. The talk right after our Connect with Your True Self session, and also a reflection of the talk with our own true selves. Welcome, all true selves, to this live webinar for May 2020. It's been a wonderful session. I'm actually blown away. Forgive me if I sound a little dippy today. Yes, it's wonderful to have you guys all here. There's very, very heavy emotional processing right now. It's very challenging for a lot of people right now, especially those of us who tend to mentalize our emotions, because there's a really, really strong sort of recoding of our inner emotional processing and this interplay with our heart and our mind. And this can be very, very heavy at times and really drive a person into this insanity of the own mind or the own emotions. And adding to all of this, of course, is our collective situation that is crazy making altogether. So there's a lot of, really intense ups and downs that people are feeling right now. And so I thought, this is exactly the kind of time where we need this connection, where we really need to go in and learn how to let go of all these outer things, learn how to discern and go into this inner fusion. All right. And this is something I notice in general when people are feeling down. And then they're not really willing to open up. They're withholding. They think they have to figure this out by themselves. And a lot of times, coaching sessions get canceled when somebody's very low, and then right after they want to talk. And this is normal, but it's also part of the mechanics of our inner disconnection. It's like when we need it the most, that's when we withhold it the most. That's when we distance ourselves the most. And of course, we have mechanisms, coping mechanisms, habits that we've developed over time that make it difficult for us to even recognize this. So all we have is really, the willingness to stay awake, the willingness to be in the present moment, and then to expand into that moment. I would love to hear from you guys how you perceive this session before I go more into the analysis. And I want to welcome Gloria and Annette and Amanda here, who co-facilitated the session with me. Thank you guys for having been there. It was a unique experience, right? Do you want to break the ice here for everybody and say a few words of how this felt for yourself from the other side of the curtain, so to speak?
I will. I'm also feeling kind of dippy, and it was very beautiful. At first, it felt like I could feel this giant relief, like this giant release of a process that I couldn't name that has been kind of brewing up for a while. And then I felt this process kind of come in and unfold. And so it felt very widening and warm. I think I described it right away. I felt like I was just in this lush, warm forest, that I was finally just kind of, oh, here we are. This was, that's what it felt like for me. It was very beautiful. It was one of those sessions that takes me to a very deep space of just wanting to surrender to the fact that this is happening and it's beyond my pay grade. I'm just gonna allow
Just
this.
bathe in it, right? Yeah, just
Yeah,
just like let it.
yeah. I think I
I'm not gonna
even said
criticize
that.
it.
Yeah, I think I even said that. I said I feel like I'm sunbathing. I started to get hot, but in the hot way that feels good. Like the sun is so warm and fiery, but in that way that just you know, fuses everything together that you don't need to describe it or label it. You just kind of let it be and watch it. And once I decided to just let it be and watch it, it was very beautiful to even watch for, I guess, for anybody who has visuals, and sometimes that can come in, but it was just, all the elements did come in, and I did see at some point, it looked like we were all kind of coming out of our little cocoons, and all these little butterfly wings were being born, and they were all different and beautiful, and um, a reminder of what we do have. Um, even when you can't really see your wings, we have them, and the love is always there. So I know this sounds so
Dippy.
floaty.
That's, if anybody asked themselves what dippy is, that's what dippy is. Like
But
love and light and right, the waterfalls and the unicorns and everything. But
so I,
it's a real feeling, right? I mean, it's glad. I'm so glad that you're saying this out loud, okay? Because we need to understand that this is a real state of feeling, of sensing, all right? It's just that when we fantasize it and we want it to be that way and we sort of project these, the kumbaya into everything, and it doesn't match up with our energies, when we're actually angry or frustrated or, sad, or see ourselves as a victim, or we see ourselves as underprivileged, or, like we can't, everybody seems to, but we can't, when we see the glass half full and we see everybody else as having a, well, ours is actually, half empty, really, and theirs is half full, and that then energies that don't match up, that's when we are fragmented, that's when we are split. I love how you said this. You made this one noise. You said, ah. And hi,
that
Abigail.
basically could have described the whole thing.
Uh, and you know what? As as we're in this session, I obviously have to think about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to describe this. And this is how I called the session "Becoming One Again." All right. And this is exactly what this, ah, you know, really describes. Now, since I have you here, Amanda, and the other trans coaches, please chime in. This wasn't just all right? There was, you talked about those releases and you talked about things that were clearly shown, that were clearly, well, feelable, visible, hearable, for us. There were the things that were clearly shown to us. And there was also this clarity all of a sudden of how all these mechanisms in us work. It was almost like we could observe it in slow motion and see how one thing leads to another, right?
Yes, this the truth of unconditionality became very, very clear. So maybe not in this state, I wouldn't have felt it the same way because it feels very beautiful. But what I clearly saw was how my love, in quotation marks, can be attached to pain and unconditionality. So in
Like either or, right? You
yeah,
can
so
turn it into
what
pain or you can turn it into
right.
beauty.
So am I focusing on my love, the actual feeling of love within, or am I attaching that to the feelings of loss or separation or distance and calling that love, that pain, love? Does this make sense?
Yeah, it's like looking at love, with a half empty glass of water, or looking at love with a half full. We're aware that it's maybe not an ideal balance yet, or that it is exactly the way how we want it, right? That can be there. It doesn't mean that we have to see it as degraded or minimized, or something painful, or something that's associated with loss. Now, we all have these memories in us, these pain memories and these fears and these difficulties with trust in regards to love. But you just said something, Amanda. It's almost like we, in this state of inner union, where we let go of all the importance of this particular emotion, loss or fear or pain, or the importance of that thought. Oh, there's always going to be like this, or I'm never going to find a partner, or, I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough, or what if I fail, blah, blah, blah. If I decide to give this no importance and just let this kind of, sort of just zoom by, all right, then I can maintain my own centeredness. That's what I heard you say. I mean, that's my interpretation,
Yes.
right?
But that I forget that I can choose that center sometimes.
Yes.
And so, the beauty of this kind of transmission is that it's okay. I forgot, and wow, I remember now. This feels so good. So in that place of remembrance, I mean, it did make me cry a lot, because I remember that I can, look beyond what's not right now, whatever I think I'm attaching my thoughts to. And remember, if I look at what I do have, I always have true love. Always.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
there. I.
that's the choice. Yeah.
Mhm.
But of course, and this is, of course, not to be underestimated, we also have all these conditioned responses. I know trauma is a big contributor, or trying to be somebody that we're not, or like all these things that we constantly talk about, and we have inner darkness too, where our energy gets so low that the remembrance of that, like the knowing or the knowledge of that, kind of feels like ridiculous at that moment, right? I'm sure you guys can all relate to that when you get to a place where you feel so shitty, okay, that all this like woo talk sounds like a bunch of BS, right? And this is the moment where we really got to realize that the choice does not make it all magically poof away, or everything is all of a sudden better, all right? It just takes away all this heavy, well, in energy work we call this lower vibratory energy from it. So it allows us to just acknowledge where we're at and remind ourselves what we're going for, what our alignment is. So in this way, the session was very realigning and also deeply recoding. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about emotional and mental processing here, just to give you guys some intellectual anchors for this. But I want to share some other comments here. Gloria was also a co-facilitator. And by the way, guys, from our perspective as energy workers, the true self session is typically a difficult session for us, because there's a lot of people who come in with a lot of different, expectations, also different levels of training and so forth. And uh, what we're pointing out here is extremely rare. We don't experience those kind of sessions very often, right, guys? I mean, co-facilitator, transCODES fellows here,
Mhm.
they're typically really heavy on us, and so this is like sunbathing. It was still kind of taxing in the beginning, and I want to read what Gloria wrote here. That the session started, and Gloria was a co-facilitator as well. She's a trained energy worker. The session started out very physical, and through the session energies, right? I experienced the denseness that she was sort of through this physical experience. These sensations. I mean, I can summarize them. Most of what we felt was felt either in the neck or was felt, in form of energetic sensations, this tingling, this heat, this vibration, pulsing, very strong, really intense. And also quite a bit of stuff here in our lower belly region and our sternum region. So it was like fifth chakra, second chakra, third chakra, and then the fourth chakra, which is our heart chakra, was trying to, well, to basically unify it all, to come in there and say, hey, it's okay, let's just bring this all together and not be too, attached to, what does the third chakra try to do? That our solar plexus energy tries to control our emotions. It tries to avoid pain and fear. And what does our fifth chakra do? It tries to control the expressions of that, how we go out and how we, not just say it with words, but how congruent we are, how we actually, then, interact with other people or with the world. And so many of us, it doesn't matter how much energy training you have or how spiritual you are, so many of us still have this like super, super tormenting, critical, negative inner voice, that keeps on monitoring and censoring and supervising our expression at all times. This is why, I've wanted to do this true self talk right after the session to give you guys an opportunity to really hear these things with other people's words, because often we miss or we don't have that vocabulary yet, and instead all we have is judgments. Okay, so when you say dippy, Amanda, when I say dippy, we did judge this a little bit. We know what it sounds like. It can sound cheesy, all right, but we also know what we felt, and that was true. And then when you talk about it, then it becomes congruent. Then there is no conflict there, confliction in that, resistance in these energies within us only comes through, let's say, feeling one thing and saying one thing, or, thinking one thing, or believing in one thing and then doing another thing, right? When the outer expression, it does not match up, and that's when we disconnect, guys. This is what the beauty of this session was, that it showed us this mechanism of how we disconnect. And for Gloria felt very much the physical aspect of that. Cindy, you were a participant. For you, this was very visual. You had lots of swirling energies, blues and purple, and they felt very clearing. Yes, but you also felt the stiffness in the beginning, in your bones, in your, this, like when your body feels super, super, just like really heavy and solid, right? And we all felt this, Cindy, and there was something that I recommended to the co-facilitators, and that's what I've basically infused into the session energies here, as the energy facilitator, and that is something that looked like this. I've asked the co-facilitators to work with the elements. Amanda, you mentioned this. When this heaviness of your body, when that gets to you, all right, then it's a good idea to work with, like basically sort of imagining or visualizing, like the elements sort of helping you to clear. Personally, one of the most effective ways when I feel this heavy, dense physical feeling in me, I visualize air flowing through me, like sitting somewhere on a mountaintop and my hair is just sort of flowing in the wind, and the wind is going through my body. And as it goes through my body, like as if I was translucent, it takes all these dense particles, these dense energies, these lower vibratory energies, it takes all of them and blows them out. All right. And I can literally feel how my body becomes less solid, less heavy. Okay. This is not the same as working and focusing on our light body. And the reason why I suggest to do it this way is because when and there's a lot of misconception out there, you've heard me say this many times, and you work with your light body and you project white light into your light bubble, okay, forget that. That's not the right way to do this. Only people who don't know how energy works say that, okay, because there's a lot of projection in the game, and that is also an aspect here in this session, namely, why does this feel so dense? physically because we absorb so much. And why do we absorb so much? Because we project so much. And this can be emotionally, this can be physically, or this can be mentally. Things that we project to others, like the pictures, the expectations, the stuff that we have in our mind, the versions of ourselves, like how, we'd rather be, or, the judgments about how we are inadequate and not good enough and all that. All right. And if you want to release all these thoughts and mental projections from your system, the fastest you can work with air, because air does body and thoughts. Now, some of us had to deal with very intense emotions. Some of us had to release more like a really strong sadness, and some had really strong frustrations and anger, and there was a lot of victimhood here in this session. Right, and how we feel so restricted from the outside, and impatience, and this one you can use fire for this. Okay, you can take this intensity and visualize fire going through your body and not burning you, because this is what's going to happen if you allow these intense emotional energies, if you allow them to stay, and if you control the expression of that. That's why we carry so much in our second chakra. That's where this all goes. All right, these energies all have to go. Remember how I said you can't really repress things, you can't really lie to yourself, because energetically it's got to go somewhere. All right, it's got to go somewhere. And when it comes to emotional energies, it will go into your digestive system, your reproductive system, your hip, your lower back. All right. And if you have to deal with the, strong anger, rage, victimhood, and so forth, and sadness and longing, then I suggest to you that you use the visualization of fire burning all of this through you. And this is when the heat comes in and everything gets sped up, okay, and gets expelled that way, like these little pieces of amber that fly off you, right? And then when you need to work with emotions that are just sort of really overwhelming emotions, and you have a fear of big emotions, and you have a fear of drowning in your own emotions, then work with water. Then visualize yourself to go into, like a hot tub. I actually use a hot tub every day, or standing underneath a waterfall and just letting the water shower over you, or the rain, and go and take all this strong, sort of sad, heavy emotion out of you, okay, and drain it out of you into the earth. And this is where the earth comes in. The earth is best for, sort of regaining your stance here, who you are, to feel yourself, to inhabit your own center, okay? And, like whenever you need to ground yourself, it's also a centering process, because then, it's like you're triangulating yourself. I'm here, I'm standing here, I'm putting my stake in here, I belong here, this is mine. All right, and this strengthens you from within. You'll feel this immediately if you if you visualize, digging your feet into the dirt, and sort of putting your roots in there and letting your roots grow underneath. They take all this identity stuff, especially the super ego stuff. They just dissolve that. They just neutralize all of this, and all this just sort of heavy sort of identity overlay, who you think you are. All that goes, into invisibility. Okay, it just all dissipates, and you become yourself again. So this was just a really quick example how you can use the elements, to better deal with intense energies, be it mental, physical, emotional, or just like really reactivity, okay, that is coming through here. I hope this helps you a little bit. So Nigel is asking, is that visual a screenshot of my mind? Oh, yes. Yeah, it was a bit hectic at first. There was a lot. This is the intensity, right? And I was trying to make the rain a little more yellowish, because it actually felt really soft and warm. But in the, I only did this like in a few, 1 minute or so, and I, didn't have the time to really Photoshop it. Yeah. So the sun here in the middle, that's like sort of our light, right? That's our center. That's when we are one. And it, even for people who are not trained in energy work or anything, to utilize the powers of nature, the most natural divine energies, all right, to unify within, I find that very helpful. Annette is sharing that it still felt very mental, so it's all unpacking. Oh yeah, so you're actually literally unpacking. You just moved. You had moments where you remembered your heart connection. And the Mobius strip, this infinity sign popped in for her to connect her. Yes, so for you, it was the past and the future and the present moment awareness. That's what the infinity sign really brings in. And still feeling a bit overwhelmed. Annette, for you, the elements, these elemental clearing and connecting tips that I just gave you can help you a lot, because when somebody moves, right, physically, like moves from one place to another, this is an extreme challenge for our first chakra, for root chakra. And so for you, because you have actually replanted yourself, you kind of have to go into all of these different aspects of yourselves, and first start with the grounding, arriving, be there, and then clear all the intense energies out there with fire, turn on a candle, and sort of visualize breathing in the fire, and let just the intensity of the past days or weeks or months go, and then work with water and clear all these emotions off you, cleanse yourselves from it, and then work with the air and fill up, your new house, your new home with yourself, and maybe use a feather and use some sage. Those are all agents that you can use to better work with these elements. And then you will see that this light inside of you, just like this heart connection, because that heart connection comes with a light. Many of you have felt this here in these past weeks, regardless of all this outer bombardment. Then this gets triggered again, all right? And it gives us instructions on how to rebalance ourselves. And this was something that came up during this session as well, because there were some moments where people, or where you guys could feel imbalances. And we've talked about this behind the scenes here. And it's so important. It then links back into what Amanda said. It's so important to recognize that it's totally okay to become aware of your own imbalances. There's also, masculine, feminine imbalances and so forth. And I shared there with the co-facilitators. I said, guys, look, I'm always imbalanced, but that doesn't prevent me from choosing to connect with myself and to connect with my love, and to rebalance myself in that way. Kind of like what Amanda said about the surrendering, I can choose this at any moment. I don't run around like, like an own person all day long. I mean, you guys know this. I have 3 kids. I have, it's the normal life like you guys do too. And I go through all the ups and downs in a day. I stump my toe and I, curse when, the food spills over the carpet. Yeah. So all I need to do is to, allow myself to let all this out. And when it gets really intense, then I call in the elements. all right, and I see my disconnection at that moment. I see the dysfunctions that I have in my reactivity as well. But I am trained, I've trained myself, I've cultivated that in myself to recognize and also to distinguish, that, oh, this is just a physical response, right? When I stump my toe, right? It's like, oh, my physic. And I immediately let go of the emotions that come in, because there was this like, oh, who put this chair here and who blah blah. That's all like just a way for me to trying to release and vent these emotional energies, but being mad about um, stomping my toe. So I realized that these are just emotions, and I let those go too. And then I have all this mental overlay, this critical inner voice that says, oh, you should have better, or why didn't you, and you saw this, and da da da, and I'm like, oh, these are just thoughts, and I let that go too. I'm not making that important, and that's then the moment when I can, feel one again and go into more clarity. What do I actually need to do? Do I need a band-aid? What do I need to do? I just need to breathe through it, and then the pain slowly dissipates, and all the anger goes away. So it's very important that we realize that if we want to really master these mechanisms of disconnection and all the dysfunctions that come with this, that we really have to, for one, of course, cultivate being aware enough that we can allow ourselves to actually feel our feelings, that we can allow ourselves to hear all our opinions and our resistance, and to tune into our fears and pains and feel them, and see these anticipations and the expectations, and I mean all the stuff that goes on in a split second in us, to see all that and to let it go. But it's really, really important to allow ourselves to feel first. We cannot heal what we cannot feel. Remember? She's sharing, yes. Oh, that's cool. You had water visuals, like a bathtub. Yeah, washing the geode and the lotus in the pond. I also felt karmic family clearing. Karmic family stuff, is coming up very, very strongly for the whole entire collective. It's the reason why I've scheduled the karmic family clearing transmission modality for tomorrow. So those are paid transmission modalities. They go specifically into a subject tree, and I could tell that this was something that you went through. All right. But it's cool that you've received instructions, because ultimately it's your true self speaking to you, right? It's your true self showing you, or making you feel something, or making you hear something, making you become more aware of something. It's pointing your attention at something. And for you, the water then has the meaning of emotions. Water is associated with emotions. To allow your emotions, to not be afraid of drowning in them, to use them to clear things, to wash them, and to also distinguish, because many of you had, with those karmic family aspects, also a lot of inner child things that came forward. That's why it felt so intense at times. All right. And inner child feelings, emotions, sensations, trauma, and so forth. I don't want to go into the psychology of this. We do this here in the Sacred Self Healing community with the webinars that we have there regularly, and also with the energetic self mastery sessions. But those are just intense emotions that at the time, when we've encountered them and how they stored in us, we didn't have, those sophisticated tools that we have today. We didn't have those intellectual tools. We didn't have the emotional tools or the spiritual tools to deal with them. We were just kids, and we were, basically powerless. So when you get overwhelmed by intense emotions, or when you notice that you're trying to disconnect yourself from big emotions, then that's because there is something stuck there in that inner child state where, when you first had those kind of emotions, when you were unable to process them. And one of the hallmarks of trauma, guys, whether it's, like specific traumatic experiences or chronic trauma, sort of dysfunctionalities, especially in families, we have a lot of dysfunctionalities. This can be anything from emotional and verbal abuse all the way, of course, to physical or sexual abuse, or codependency and narcissism, or addictions, mental illness. Those are the four main contributors for chronic trauma in us, okay? And, they can severely impact all your, the processing inside of you, okay? So one of the hallmarks of having, had, say, it's not always that you've had a rough childhood, but if you had these dysfunctions in your family systems, all right, what happens is that your emotional processing gets rewired, all right? So in a, say, normal, unaltered, like just normal condition, not with a specific trauma conditioned person, the signal processing goes like, first you recognize something through your five senses, at least your brain thinks so, that it's the first thing, and then your brain says, oh, okay, I'm seeing something, or I'm sensing something, or I'm hearing something, or smelling something. And then the brain tries to make sense of it. It kind of searches the inner emotional database, for a pattern. It searches for something that it reminds it of, and comes, to a place in your past, right? It compares data with the past where that kind of, thing has happened before. And this happens within 10,000th unit of a second. So we're not aware of that. And then we develop an emotion about the signal, the sensation, and the thought that we have. Okay, so the thought now plays a huge role, as you can tell, in what kind of emotion we're going to have. The thought was, oh, that's a good feeling, that's a bad feeling. Oh, that reminds me of a threat. Oh, this is probably going to kill me. Oh, this is a good feeling. Oh, yeah, I like that one. All right, you see, that's the opinion of your brain that determines the emotion that you feel. All right, that you then begin to emote about whatever is happening in your life. And then comes the mind again and filters it out and says, oh, yeah, I'm talking about a normal emotional mental processing. Mind says, oh, no, that's new. I've never experienced this before. Oh, and here comes this again. This is the healthy version of this. I should explore this. I should find out what this is. Oh, how does this truly feel to me? And then go into this discernment, this distinction that I mentioned earlier. You feel into it. It makes my body feel like this. Oh, it makes my emotions feel like this. It makes my mind go into that area. And oh, spiritually, there's a bunch of things that are coming in for me. And of course, if you're trained in energies, you might perhaps also have distinctive energetic sensations that go along with this, and you become curious and you want to explore this, and you allow yourself to grow, you allow yourself to expand into this. All right, and this can be a negative or a positive experience. That's just your mind, in the end, filing it away, compartmentalizing it in a certain filing cabinet. Now, in someone who's experienced a lot of trauma, this doesn't work this way. In someone who's experienced a lot of trauma, it will go like, oh, sensation, direct hardwire to an emotion, a flashback, a recording, a tape of an emotion is being played. The mind goes into total panic. All right. It's like, oh my God, because at this level of cognitive processing, it's not clear whether this is actually happening right now, or if this is just an imagination, because the body is now also hardwired to it and comes up with the corresponding physical sensations. So your body goes into, like, say, anxiety about something. It's a very physical reaction. And your mind goes, oh my God, this is the scariest thing ever. We're going to have to suppress that. No way, Jose. I do not want to feel this way. And it tries to control the emotion itself. The problem with this is that it's not actually something that was generated in this moment. It was nothing that actually came out of the experience of this moment. It came out of a hardwire, out of a flashback, out of a recording in you. And what happens over time, if we never really work with this and untangle this and decouple this from another, is that we begin to identify with it. And then we become that person. We become this person who's anxious or depressed or doesn't want to experience anything, is afraid of making mistakes, and literally wastes all energy in suppressing all of this instead of expanding into it and growing with it and increasing the capacity for love, the capacity for light, the capacity for wisdom, for clarity, and for truth. And this is, of course, a very simplified way of describing this, but I really wanted you guys to see this here in conjunction with the connection, or with connecting with your true self. When you connect with your true self, you are bypassing all of that. That doesn't mean that it is not there. You will still feel it. You'll feel the pull into family stuff, into memories, into childhood things or painful love experiences and all this. But you will be able to, like Amanda said, it's like a higher pay grade. You'll be able to witness all of this, and you'll feel like you stand above it, not as in dissociating from it. Dissociating means you're cutting it off from you. No. You're allowing this to feel. You're allowing yourself to feel this. And you say, oh, listen to all these negative thoughts that are coming up there, and just like really minimizing and tormenting critical inner voice and superego that I have that is telling me what a loser I am and blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, those are my thoughts. And look at those feelings, those emotions that are coming up there. Oh my God, it feels like I've been, the biggest victim in the world. Or the physical stuff. Oh my God, everything locks up. It's an excruciating pain. I can't move forward. I can't expand. I can't be me. I better don't be me. I better don't be human altogether. I better just be in my mind, or some imagined enlightened being that no longer needs a body. Well, I can give you one hint here, guys. You are in 3D, and you're here in 3D because you chose to be here in 3D. And for as long as you are here in 3D, you're going to have a body. And you might want to deal with that one, because the way you deal with your body is the way you're going to perceive everything that happens to you, because your physical and your emotional and your mental reactions are all tied to your physiology. The higher pay grade, the stuff that happens in your consciousness, that can only develop, and well, it's always there, but you can only become really tune into this and align to this if you cultivate this connection with your true self. You start talking with it. So all my talk here is really just to encourage and empower you to go into this talking with your true self. And however this comes to you, as a light, as a being, okay, as a tree, or however it comes to you is irrelevant. Just don't project into it, because when you project into it, then there is already a filtering in process. You're already trying to alter it, and as you alter it, you project things out, and as you project things out, You're opening all the channels to absorb things in. Okay. So a lot of your thoughts and a lot of your emotions aren't even yours, guys. Yes. Yeah, Nigel, you say feel in, but with positive thinking. Yeah, but even there we have to be careful. There's something that is fake positive thinking, and that has to do with this projecting. All right. It is very difficult when you feel low to think positive. So you're going to actually have to deal with your thoughts and your emotions to be able to see more optimism and to feel more, you know, sort of connected with your true self. All right. So we're going to have to deal with this. This was another thing that came up here for some of you parts of the group, namely this confrontation with the white shadow, as we call this, sort of the Mr. Nice Guy and Mrs. Nice Guy. Well, Mrs. Nice Guy doesn't exist, right? Miss Goody Two Shoes or something. This is not the time, guys, to go into this fake positivity and into this sort of being nice. When you're standing in your truth, you feel much more clarity about your boundaries. You feel much more much more clarity about your expressions and how congruent they are, and also the words that you use with others and so forth, and how you present yourself to the world. But you'll also feel that there's a whole another dimension of sort of being kind and caring, truly caring. So many of you guys have this calling to be healers and things like that. What that means to be a healer. To be a healer doesn't mean to sacrifice yourself and get killed in the process. Right? That's the unhealed healer. That's part of your white shadow. That's part of this Mr. Nice Guy and Mrs. Goody Two Shoes. Because then you're doing this for a different reason. You're projecting out, hey, look at me. And what a cool healer, a cool, a victim, sacrifice. I am so love without sacrifice, a big, big subject here on the deeper spiritual level in this month. Okay, so yes, what it means to truly love, to truly care. And this comes with kindness, and tenderness, and also with respect. It's coded into the invocation here for the true self. And not being nice. Being nice is a projection. Okay. Yes, Nigel, yeah, not forcing it. Yeah. Any closing words from you, comments, or maybe questions? You can also ask about your personal energies here and how the context of how we saw this here as the energy coders on the other end. After all, that's why we're here. Would anybody like to share or comment or ask? Right. We have a thread in the forum that allows you to comment and share and ask questions, especially if you couldn't be here in this webinar live and if you're listening to the recording. So please use this thread. It's in the instructions and it will also be in the email with the recording here for the session. So you can always come there later. And oftentimes, just a reminder here, it's not the energy sessions themselves that unfold these things in us. Those who are trained can see this online, but those of you who don't really have experience with energy sessions, understand that this is just sort of the energetic popping of things, or download or the clearing aspect of it. And that all of this is now starting for you, all right? So there's an unfoldment that you will be able to witness here for the next 3 to 5 days, I'll say. And I was hoping that this would get you through these really heavy full moon energies here in May, all right? So that they can carry you through this, the remembrance of some of these downloads, or that some of these energies that you could base yourself in here, to remind yourself to realign, okay, to being one within, and maybe using the elements for this. For those of you who want to go a little deeper, you can check the transCODES event calendar. As I've mentioned, tomorrow we have a public session that you can sign up for called the Karmic Family Clearing. It's a new process, guys. It was basically the old, there's only one process for this, but it's re-recorded. That takes place tomorrow at 11 p.m. here, Florida time. And then on Friday, we have the inner child reconciliation, the inner child integration. With the instructions always come with a lot of things for our mind to better understand and so forth. So those are the two sessions that I've scheduled here for May, anticipating these heavy family and deep emotional things that are unfolding right now, to work with them, to actually actively work with them, right? So that you can feel stronger in all of this. All right. Thank you all for coming. Yes, thanks. Lots of thanks to the co-facilitators. And I'm wishing you a wonderful May. The next free True Self session with the True Self Talk will be in the beginning of June. Love you guys. Looking forward to our next session. Bye-bye.